Okay, so I have no idea what the volume situation is going to be like. So I'm going to use this as a sort of test in a sense, although I want to upload this video anyway. I came across a video and it's entitled Australians React to Watching Crocodile Dundee for the First Time from BuzzFeed. So I had sort of, I guess you could say, a preconceived idea that, to be honest, was vindicated. BuzzFeed is an extremely left-wing site. It's really the hub of millennial sensitivities and identity politics and a lot of things I find very off-putting. Anyway, just in case you don't know, it's a very famous film, but if you don't know, Crocodile Dundee is a 1986, I believe, Australian film that has become actually a sort of almost an iconic national symbol. It's basically about an outback man who falls in love with an American woman, a journalist, and it's kind of about their adventures and about him dealing with the urban world versus the outback, etc. It's kind of a comedy drama adventure, and it's a pretty popular film. It was a pretty successful film. It had a few sequels as well. Anyway, like I say, the film was made in the mid 80s, so it's not particularly politically correct, but it's a damn good film. It's entertaining, and most people who have watched it, from what I've seen, see that. It certainly made the star Paul Hogan. It made his big breakthrough. So anyway, automatically, these young people were getting into critique about it being offensive. One girl with a hat on, and I'll put a link so you can see for yourself, was seemingly trying to find something offensive about every scene. So, for example, there's one scene where a New York mugger, black guy, tries to rob Crocodile Dundee, and she says, "Oh, that's Crocodile Dundee's girlfriend, is looking at him that way because he's black," something to that extent. No, she's looking at him that way because he's dressed like a generic criminal of the 80s in New York City. Um, Another scene where there's this transvestite, or I guess you could say transsexual person, in a bar, and Crocodile Dundee is shocked to find that she's not really a biological woman. And this girl was like, "Oh, it's not the most politically correct scene." Ooh, and I figured, well, no, it's not. It's um, and just it seemed that every single nuance they were, finding a way to critique. The girl with the hat said, "I want to throw up" at one point. No, this is my take on this. They don't have to like the film. Okay. I'm very much of the view that films and music are very much down to personal taste. I would never say to someone, you have to enjoy this or you have to think this is a good film or a good song. So if they don't like it for those, they don't like it, they don't like it. They have a right not to like it. But I do think it is telling of a particular aspect of my generation of millennials whereby people almost program themselves to be offended. Like they have this little radar and they're constantly looking out for, oh, is that acceptable? Is that acceptable? Oh, is that stereotyping? Oh, that won't. And it just gets very tiresome. Very often it's steeped in white guilt when white people are doing it. It's this notion that we need to feel ashamed because we are white. Um, and in its most extreme form, this sort of extreme political correctness, this extreme sensitivity, is utterly ridiculous. I mean, when you get to the point of being accused of cultural appropriation, if you happen to like something that is outside your own perceived culture, the irony of this is if you don't like it, then you're also a racist. And I hate the way that certain overly sensitive people have turned every single thing into something much more sinister and much darker, i.e., some sort of form of bigotry. Now, I know that racism exists. I know that sexism and homophobia exist, and they're not good things, obviously. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being socially conscious. That's also okay. I don't think that people should go around just being dicks and, being nasty and unpleasant to one another. And I certainly would always oppose clear bullying. But the problem with so called social justice warriors, and I say so called because I'm not even sure if it's the best pejorative, because it's almost a compliment, social justice warriors. I think there could be better pejoratives. Let's call them oversensitive crybabies, because that's more accurate, really. Than I don't. I rarely say social justice warrior because I don't think it's particularly offensive, and I don't think it sums up how petty these people are. Um, what they don't realize is their mindset is actually controlling. Their mindset is quasi totalitarian because they're the ones who are, in some cases, trying to push for legislation to make you know, to make speech a criminal offence. This is very dangerous, and we need to be extremely assertive about this. Extremely wary about it. It just irritates me that there are people out there who look for offence in everything, and they say, "Oh, that's stereotypical." And you see certain industries that are now awash with this. I guess I'm getting into a bit of a rant here, but look at the film industry. A film cannot be made today if it's perceived to be politically incorrect, even if the perceived racism or sexism is being turned on the racist or the sexist themselves. In other words, a white film director would probably find it very hard to make a film about the slave trade, even if they're exposing the evils of the slave trade, because they wouldn't be able to use the M word. Now, that to me is just dishonesty, because historically the M word was an extremely racist slur for black people. So if you cannot even depict racism, if you're a director or a writer, that, I mean, where does that leave us? It ruins creativity. It ruins the pursuit of knowledge, actually, because you're in a situation whereby everything is being censored, and I find that deeply frustrating. And I'm dabbling in writing. I hope one day to get published. And I admit that sometimes there's certain scenarios I set up, and I think, well, would this be censored? Is this politically incorrect? Not that I care personally, but I want it to be published, and I do wonder, would that be censored? And it's interesting that things that weren't offensive not so long ago are suddenly offensive. An example: the word Oriental. It simply means of the East. Okay, that could be a person, it could be a culture. The opposite is Occidental, of the West. Now, that word only apparently became offensive, certainly in this country, very, very recently. The US, I would say, has been far more politically correct even longer than the UK. So it's probably been offensive there for longer. But at what point did a word that was simply an adjective to describe of the East become offensive? That to me is crazy. Even when Chinese people and people of the Asian continent themselves use the word, it seems to be only Westerners and Western minority people who decide on occasion to take offense at these things. And we can't even generalize, because very often you have a situation where white social justice warriors decide to take offense on behalf of other people. Like, this might be offensive to Muslims, this might be offensive to Asians or whatever. Um, I think we need to start, frankly, becoming less sensitive and saying, no, we're not going to censor this. We're not going to, completely alter an entire production or entire film because a few people might be upset by it. I just think it's very unfortunate too, particularly in the film industry, that everything now is about, oh well, how many black actors are in this? How many Asian actors are in this? How many women are in leading roles? Everything has become about identity politics. Film is no longer for film's sake. I'm all for opportunity, and I wouldn't want a situation where it was all white men. Of course not. But when you get into a situation where identity politics brings its ugly head into every single thing, and I hate it because I think it is a deeply divisive way of thinking. To go through life sort of looking at every single scenario, oh, because I'm a woman, because I'm Asian, because I'm white, whatever. It's just a very regressive way of thinking. And social justice warriors think that it is progressive to have this little checklist with every single thing. And it's ridiculous. I mean, it seems now that Hollywood, every single Academy Award for the last 2 or 3 years, there has had to be some underlying issue. And yes, there's always been a political aspect of the Oscars, but it's been an overdrive in the last few years. And I find it incredibly off putting as a big film fan. I'm thinking, for God's sake, can we not just enjoy the films for film's sake? Why is it always about, take, for example, oh, this film is stereotyping these people? It's a film. Okay, film is meant to be a perception of a reality if it's a non-fiction film, or if it's fictional, that's the point, it's fictional. But the whole point of film is it's meant to be out of the ordinary, it's meant to capture your imagination. Of course it uses stereotypes. The thing about stereotypes, right, is they're not untruthful. Stereotypes have truth. It's just that when people believe that is the only situation, then it becomes problematic. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a situation where stereotypes are just not true, and because they're used in a film, oh, it must be bigotry. You know, I'm not saying people should go around, thinking through stereotypes. That's when it becomes problematic. But to say that, a caricature of something, or let me put it another way, the perceived way that something is, that is always wrong. No, it's not. Can't think of an example off the top of my head, but um, okay, let me just think of a random example. This is totally off the top of my head. Let's say you have a film set in Hawaii. You have hula dancers, right? Oh, it's stereotypical. It is, yeah, but it's also what you would see. Um, it's just, it irritates me that people think everything always has to be done in a way to make sure no one is offended, and to be done in a way that's trying to please people. I mean, if you want to have a depiction of reality, then you get, multifaceted people. You get people who are not two dimensional. Therefore, you're going to have, for example, I think minority characters who are bad. Does that mean it's a racist depiction of them? No. It means that it's just like any other group of people. You get good people and bad people, or you get people with malign intent. Anyway, I'm going a bit off on a tangent here, but I am just so, so, so tired of identity politics and the political correctness that motivates it. It is just this like programmed sort of, it pisses me off. And I'm saying this as someone who dislikes bullying, who dislikes racism and other forms of bigotry. Of course, those things should be condemned where there are clear examples. But, you know, what we are seeing now is the, the way people are just, that these concepts are just thrown around. That to me is problematic because it devalues those problems in the first place. So when racism is thrown around, then it devalues the problem that it actually is.